This weekend, DreamWorks' latest movie that is an adaptation of Dogman drops in theaters. Here are my thoughts on it. Hi, my name is Nathan, and I like to talk about a lot of movies on this channel. If you're new here, down below in the comment section, share what you thought of the Dogman movie over on my channel. I have more content like this. Check those out once this video is over. If you enjoy this video, click the like button, be sure to subscribe because that really does help a lot and is very much appreciated. With all that said, let's just get straight into this review talking about the good. With this film, it's a little bit more complicated with this review to actually review it as a film and also to review it as how much I enjoyed this movie. Because this film is very much purely made for fans of Dogman. And so if you're a fan of Dogman, this movie is probably right up your alley, but thus inherently that is sort of a very niche group of people. If you're in a certain age range, or if you how much you grew up with the books, that is like a certain age range that I don't think several people fall into. All these adult critics who review movies for a living, I don't believe that they've read a single Dogman book, or that they are really fans of the material and can't grade it on that level, or how much they had fun with it. Luckily for this movie, I am part of the niche that enjoys the Dogman books. When I was growing up back in elementary school, I read all the Captain Underpants books, and as soon as that series ended, Dogman came in, and that was just the book series that dominated much of my elementary school years. I spent a bunch of my time reading some Dogman books, getting together with my friends at recess time in like 4th grade to read some Dogman books. I actually still have some of the books over there. I don't think I have all of them. I think I lost some of them along the way, but I actually still have them over there that I cannot get for you right now because I'm talking about this movie right now. Very luckily for this movie, I am part of this niche, and I have read the first, I would say, 10 Dogman books. And I thought that this movie did a very good job of adapting the source material and the works of Dave Pilkey, the writer of the Captain Underpants and Dogman books. In this case being with Dogman, where they just did a really good job of adapting it on, for me, pretty much every single level. It stylistically, very much, what I liked about it was that it looked so much like Dogman, where the animation style and the way it's done looks sort of like colored in, a mix of colored in as well as like definitely CG animation, but it's made with so much style. There's some visual onomatopoeia that matches the style of the graphic novels that were released that this movie is based off of, and it just felt like the Dogman books. And I really appreciated that as somebody that grew up reading and enjoying those books. And as somebody that likes those books, there are so many enjoyable Easter eggs that I got and references, even from like just the very opening shot, like where I'm just like, hey, that's that thing from book 4. And I just had a blast pointing out all these Easter eggs, like, oh, they kept this in here. Oh my gosh, this is a joke in here. Like, so many enjoyable Easter eggs. They even very often take lines of dialogue straight from the book, panels straight from the book, and just put it on screen here. And that's just the kind of stuff that, like, for Dogman, as somebody that grew up reading these books, absolute blast with what they do there. But outside of my nostalgia, I also just think it's a fun, enjoyable family film where it has sort of ADHD humor, like where if they put this type of humor in an Illumination film, I'd probably criticize it more because Illumination just goes for the low, lazy humor that it normally goes with. But it works better in this context with a Dogman movie, especially because it's adapting the works of Dave Pilkey, who has so much ADHD humor here, quite literally also in this movie. It adapts it really well, and the ADHD immature humor really works and actually is more wittier than you would initially expect, and it's actually funny, and that just worked really well. And adding on to the ADHD humor and the blast of Dogman nostalgia that was thrown into this movie, it actually does have quite a bit of a heart and a character arc for one of our characters to go through, Petey, where I'm not going to spoil his character arc or anything, but if you've read the books, you have a basic idea of that. And it kind of, you see his transformation, you care about the character, and it's kind of this, the real journey is kind of about him. And I thought it just worked really nicely in this movie. It made this movie have a heart, it had some themes, and it had a character arc. So, for me, this was a very enjoyable movie. Where as somebody that read all of the Dogman books, not all of them, I read them up to the 10th one, but as somebody that loved Dogman growing up, and I remembered all the lore of these books, and I absolutely eat it up, I thoroughly enjoyed what they did with this movie, and I had an absolute blast watching it. Doesn't mean it's perfect, so let's move on to the bad. And for me, this is a tricky one to sort of grade on a final level, because I understand that it is a flawed film. I have my issues with it, but on the other hand, it's a Dogman. I have so much nostalgia for it. Did I have a blast watching this movie? Yes, I did. Is it really funny? Yes, it is. But here I have to talk about some of the negatives of this movie. First one up here, I simply feel like it is cramming a little bit too much into one movie, where the film is adapting a bunch of things from the first book, a little bit of the second book, a lot of the third book, sometimes from the seventh book it draws, because Grandpa is a character in this movie. So it's adapting so many books, sort of mashing it into this one, and in doing so, it makes a movie that inherently feels sort of overstuffed. It's not a bad movie to me, but it inherently feels like an overstuffed film. Likewise, I think maybe it needed to be a little bit longer for that same exact reason, is that there is so much going on. There are so many plot lines taken from so much of the books, and that ties into sort of how long the movie is, which is only 90 minutes with the credits. So you could feel that it should have been longer than it is, because it's trying to cram so much. I think it would have been more solid if they had taken maybe the first three books and just adapted that instead of doing all this sort of other stuff with Grandpa and things like that. Though that does tie into the character arc, and they play around with it a little bit, and it is fun to see on screen, I simply did feel like it was overstuffed a little bit, and that it needed to be either longer or they needed to cut out a bunch of plot lines. And you definitely feel that while watching this movie. And for a movie that is called Dogman, and I know this is kind of apparent in the books, not as much in the books, but kind of apparent, Dogman himself kind of feels a little bit sidelined in this movie. Like, he's pushed off to the side, because the character arc, like I said, is given to Petey. And that's natural. That does occur in the book. That is the way to do it. But inherently, when you have a movie called Dogman, and your lead character, I mean, Dogman kind of has a little bit of an adorable journey, but he's not really sort of like a character. He doesn't have any lines. Well, he shouldn't, because the books that he doesn't have any lines. They adapt it properly, but inherently when you do that, Dogman is a little bit sidelined. But if you can forgive a bunch of the mistakes that this movie makes and just watch it and have fun, you'll have an absolute blast with this movie, especially if you're a fan of the Dogman books like I am. So, final score on this one is a little bit tricky, because how much did I enjoy the movie? I enjoyed it a lot. Do I understand it has its flaws? Absolutely. But as somebody that enjoyed the Dogman books, I just had so much fun watching this movie in a packed theater filled with Dogman fans, and it was just an absolute blast watching this film on the big screen. And I could have watched this movie for like 30 minutes longer. One of my criticisms, like I said, is that it should have been longer. And I would have completely been okay if it was a 2-hour animated Dogman movie. And so, was it an enjoyable experience? Yes. Is it a flawed film? Absolutely. But the nostalgia that I have for the books is very powerful. So this final score could change, but as of this moment, I'll give it an A. I thoroughly enjoyed what they did with this. I thoroughly enjoy the Dogman books, and I thoroughly enjoy this movie. There were some things that needed to be ironed out, but that doesn't change the fact that I had an absolute blast with it. So if you're a Dogman fan, go see this movie. But those are just what I thought of it. Down below in the comment section, share what you thought of the Dogman movie over on my channel. I have more content like this. Check those out right now. Thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end. I will see you in the next one.